Nigeria is just too black. One ought to send people of other races into Nigeria, point that black Nigerians are a minority, so that Nigerians no longer make the rules and they must obey the rules made by these new people who came in. And this is to be done even when the majority of black Nigerians do not wish for this to happen, i.e., it is to be done against their will. When the British invaded and took over the area that is now Nigeria, they made the rules. This was a denial of sovereignty and was anti-Nigerian, but the British did not replace the Nigerian population, and they eventually left. Recovery from a mass immigration program would not be so easy, if it would be possible at all. Obviously, I'm using Nigeria to illustrate that mass immigration programs targeted at white countries against the will of whites are anti-white. It is worse than military conquest, and seldom in history has it been seen as anything but. When the Oslo Jewish community in Norway says that Norway is too white and that other people should come in to make the rules that whites must now obey, it's obviously about reducing white power and elevating the power of everyone else. In the US, the projection of a white minority has been celebrated by Bill Clinton and the entire 1998 graduating class of Portland State, by Newsweek magazine, the Huffington Post, the Daily Show, Joe Biden, and certainly a lot more that I can't be arsed to go look up. Now, maybe you wish to say that whites, especially whites in the United States, deserve dispossession while Nigerians do not. And I'll argue that line by line, but that doesn't change that you're still anti-white, even if you think it's justified.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. As a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. An unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
Pointing out that it's anti-white, though, puts your views in an honest perspective. It puts in the full gravity of what you're saying. Usually that is where this argument ends, with more white leaders in Europe calling for permanent Somali rule over various countries via mass immigration. And while it's a sound argument, it leaves the door open that these people aren't viscerally anti-white, but are merely hypocritical due to a lack of thought. They just don't know what it is that they're doing. A report released by the University of Illinois stated that a room full of white people constitutes a microaggression against other races. Of course, they have lots of theory behind this, but the ultimate point is that a room full of white people is immoral. If you disagree with this and don't think that they meant it as immoral, well, they certainly are trying to pathologize it. And while this study was roundly mocked by conservative media outlets, it was treated very seriously by the Huffington Post. And the three principal researchers of this paper all still have their jobs and didn't face any consequences for a paper designed to delegitimize the existence of whites in groups. If you don't think that this was their intent, well, certainly the study, if taken seriously, would have that effect to delegitimize whites in groups. And the policy proposals of the study were all aimed at eliminating overwhelmingly white classes. So while at first glance you may think that my interpretation is hyperbolic, it nevertheless very simply appears to be the case. But this delegitimization of whites is much broader. Well-known examples are attacks on the Tea Party for being too white, attacks on the Republican Party for being too white. There has also been an ongoing campaign mandating that whites in the US military be aware that their achievements in life are to be discounted and minimized because they have white privilege. If someone told Japanese people that their life accomplishments weren't meaningful because they're Japanese, well, we would say that this person is anti-Japanese, just as this is obviously anti-white to anyone who doesn't subscribe to certain priors that form the backbone of what I call university social science consensus. In addition, the US military has been attacked for being too white, for having too many white males in leadership roles and having too many white males in the special forces. Even the prisoner of war flag was attacked by Newsweek for depicting a white male in a POW camp. It doesn't matter that the military itself is disproportionately white and male. The flag must show non-white POWs that don't exist in reality and suppress the reality of white POWs. Another example, the city of Los Angeles attacked its fire departments for being too white. Anti-white mania even hits school below college. Brooklyn schools are cutting gifted programs because they're too white, and the federal government released a report saying advanced placement programs are too white. We can take a trip across the pond and see that anti-white mania afflicts the UK. UK schools, which would otherwise get top marks, are getting marked down 1 grade for being too white. Say it with me. They are being punished. Yes, being marked down a grade is a form of punishment. Why are they being punished? For being white. Okay, let's put it together. They are being punished for being white. Simple, true, no need to argue, just swallow it. Also in the UK, the British Broadcasting Corporation is willing to put their desire to reduce white influence on the BBC ahead of the old way of just hiring the most capable people. Again, if you think that's a loaded description of what they're doing, well, what are they doing? Previously, their hiring was all based on perceived ability, but that resulted in too many white people. So in order to get fewer white people, they must necessarily reduce the importance of ability and raise the importance of not being white, to punish those who are white for being white. But there's a silver lining to anti-white mania, which is that white anti-whites sometimes get burned. For example, there is a growing stigma that indie music is too white, or that the shitcom EastEnders is too white, that bicycling is too white, that the Green Party is too white. Ignore the fact that the Green Party of California supported booths to give free slaps to straight white men for the crime of being straight white men. Even embracing African music didn't save the band Shokazoba from the charge of being white. Also, the Game of Thrones is attacked for being white. Hillary Clinton's campaign is too white. South Africa, which Noam Chomsky hilariously predicted was ending apartheid to institute a knowledge-based economy, has the problem that its professors are still 86% white, clearly a result of them still having all of that power and privilege. A similar sentiment was aired publicly by the president of Western Washington University, who decried that the university was too white. Perhaps a possible solution would be to make the curriculum more diverse, perhaps by starting a campaign to not read any books by white males for a year, or a more long-term solution to remove things like Shakespeare from the curriculum, because Shakespeare is too white, by the way. But the real tell is the concept of colorblind racism, which repudiates these old ideas of tolerance and diversity and reveals them as just the thin end of an anti-white wedge. The idea is that by treating everyone equally, you are being racist against non-whites because of their past systematic oppression, and thus fairness dictates that whites be treated worse than everyone else. And of course, if you question the priors that colorblind racism rests on, that other races did have systemic disadvantages in a way that would be felt today, and that none of the current differences are due to genetic differences between the races, if you question any of this, well then you're a revisionist and pseudo-scientific racist, and possibly a Nazi Ku Klux, i.e. their beliefs are structured in such a way that they're nearly impossible to attack, because by merely attacking them, you are now a pathological person. Larry King, when talking to Who Cares on his dumb softball show in 2011, mentioned that his grandson wished that he were black, and followed with, "There's lots of advantages to being black." And then, "Black is in. Is this a turning of the tide?" Related to this is the transracial movement, which is where white people pretend that they're some other race. Of course, this thing, like with gender fluidity, is really just a mental illness masquerading as something real, but the tell is that few of these people wish they were white. Why not? Aren't whites super privileged? This is another tell. If these people were black saying that they were white, or that I wish I was white, or little black children that said that they wish they were white, well, you'd never hear the end of it. Robin Morgan, a quote-unquote feminist activist, in 2003 made a quote that gives a great tell into the anti-white mindset, or whatever you want to call it. She said, quote, "My white skin disgusts me. My passport disgusts me. They are the marks of an insufferable privilege brought at the price of others' agony. If I could peel myself inside out, I would be glad. If I could become part of the oppressed, I would be free. So even though being white means to be loaded with privilege and to be at a profound advantage, this person wishes to be part of the quote-unquote oppressed. White people are the ones who wish to stop talking about race. This is what they would do if quote-unquote talking about race simply meant more attacks on whites.